This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Agitavach, Afreilach Chanukah, Agon Chodesh. Many times we've said over from the Sefer Tashis LaRoshia, Rav Pinchas Zavichi, that Rav Meir's real Yahrtzeit is Rosh Chodesh Teves. And even though it's usually assumed to be Pesach Sheni, nevertheless this is the accurate Yahrtzeit, and this explains why the Ben Ish Chai mysteriously writes that one should light a candle, L'Zecher Nishmas, Rav Meir Bal HaNes, specifically on Rosh Chodesh Teves, and this is codified by the Kaf HaChaim and mentioned by Reb Chaim Falaji as well. Because tonight is the Yahrtzeit of Rav Meir Bal HaNes. And we explained why Rav Meir was specifically connected to the Yom Tov of Chanukah. The whole tefillah, Elokah Demeir Anini, that the Gemara in Avodah Zarah tells us that when Rav Meir was in trouble, he would invoke the tefillah, Elokah Demeir Anini, and the Marsha is bothered. How could Rav Meir say that Hashem is his God? We know HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not attribute his name to tzaddikim so long as they're alive. And the Marsha answers in his second answer that what Rav Meir meant was Elokah, the God that illuminated the lives of the Jewish people in the times of Chanukah, he should answer us. So we see Rav Meir always invoked the Yom Tov of Chanukah. Rav Meir was specifically connected to Chanukah, and how fitting it is that Rav Meir's Yahrtzeit is on Chanukah. This is the day that we've explained in the past, the day that gave Eidos that we are Banim La'Makayim. We know Rav Meir's famous Shita is that we are always Banim La'Makayim. And on this day, by the Rebbi Shem restoring Chodesh, Mila, and Shabbos, the Chidah says these are the three mitzvahs that demonstrate that we are Banim La'Makayim. The fact that we could proclaim when it's Rosh Chodesh, and even if it's erroneous, Hashem will go along with us. The fact that we're able to keep Shabbos, Goy Sheshavas Chayiv Misa. Shabbos is the scepter of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the fact that we're able to keep Shabbos indicates we have a special status, we're Banim La'Makayim. And furthermore, Bris Milah, the Zohar HaKadosh says, is only reserved for those who are Banim La'Makayim. So Chanukah demonstrated we are Banim La'Makayim, and therefore in Al Nisim we say, V'yachar kein bo'u banecha. So Rav Meir was so connected to Chanukah, his Yahrtzeit is on Chanukah. I would like to share l'kavod this holy evening, the Yahrtzeit of Rav Meir Bal HaNes, a new Remez or two to Rav Meir and his specific connection to Chanukah. The Rishonim ask, it's brought by the Avudraham, and the Avudraham brings this from Yerushalmi, that why did the Neiros in the Beis HaMikdash have to burn for 8 days? Okay, so all the oil was tamei. So make tahar oil. So what took so long? Why did the Neiros have to last for 8 days? So the Rishonim say that it took 3 days to travel to Tekoya, which was in the Shevet of Asher. Asher's share in Eretz Yisrael was very rich with oil, like the pasuk says in Devarim, Parak Lamed Gimel, pasuk Chav Daled. Baruch mi banim asher yihi ritzoy echav v'toivei b'shemen ragloi. And it took 3 days to get there, 1 day to make it, 3 days to get back, so it took 7 days to produce the oil, so it had to last for 8 days that day, and another 7 days to make it. And so some say that the trip took a total of 8 days, but be it as it may, Klal Yisrael had to travel to the share of Asher. That means the miracle of Chanukah waited until we got the oil from the Shevet of Asher. And the question that's asked is, technically you can make oil anywhere. Why do they dafka have to go to Asher share? Certainly in Asher they had very lush olives, and the Mahadrin type of oil was found in Asher. But couldn't they have made the oil, produced the oil anywhere? And Rav Shlomo Arieli in the Sefer Raptuni B'Tapuchim says yes, they could have. They could have produced second tier oil anywhere, but they made efforts to produce oil that was Mahadrin, and that's why by the mitzvah of Ner Chanukah we specifically have the inyan of Mahadrin, something we don't have by any other mitzvah, because Klal Yisrael went out of their way to travel to the chelik of Asher to produce the oil, and therefore we too want to fulfill the mitzvah of Halakas Ner Chanukah in the most beautiful way, and we have this inyan of Mahadrin. So we see that the chelik of Asher is very much connected to Chanukah. One would imagine then that in this pasuk, Uli asher amar baruch mi banim asher yihi ritzui echav v'toivel b'shemen ragloi. You would imagine that in this pasuk is laden many, many ramazim to Chanukah. So let's investigate and search. The Chidushei Harim, and this is quoted by Sfas Emes as well. This is brought in the Sefer Imrei Harim. He brings out and he notes that many halachos of Chanukah are connected to the hergel and the regel. For example, haragil b'ner Chanukah, or the mitzvah applies ad shetichla regel min hashuk. And the Chidushei Harim explains the purpose of ner Chanukah is to overcome hergel, habit. Therefore, haragil b'ner, one who illuminates their habits, one who illuminates the force that pulls us down of hergel, or ad shetichla regel min hashuk. The mitzvah of ner Chanukah exists until hergel has ceased. The avodah of Chanukah is to overcome hergel, and therefore, in the pasuk, which describes the share in Eretz Yisrael that produced the oil, it's v'toivel b'Hashem, and you need to immerse in oil ragloi, the hergel. So again, we see in this pasuk a connection to the miracle of Chanukah. There's a sefer of one of the Kadmonim, even quoted in the Magen Avraham in Hilchos Chanukah. It's called Chanukah's Habayis, and he brings an amazing remez from this pasuk. He says this pasuk, Uli asher amar baruch mi banim asher yihi ritzui echav v'toivel b'shemen ragloi, has 36 letters, connected the 36 Neiros of Chanukah. Furthermore, in Parshas Vayechi, May Asher Shmeina Lachmai. First of all, Shmeina is Shmeina, connected to the 8 days of Chanukah. But May Asher Shmeina Lachmai V'hu is the Mila, is the word Shalom. As we know, that the Gemara tells us in Masechta Shabbos that Ner Shabbos takes precedence over other mitzvahs because of Shalom Bayis. So this is also a remez to one of the halachas of Chanukah that another mitzvah would trumpet. So again, we see that Asher and the psukim by Asher, specifically, Uli Asher Amar, Baruch mi banim Asher, Yehi Ritzoi Echa, V'toivel B'Shemen, Ragloi, is specifically connected to Chanukah. In fact, Rabbi Sarchadoiv of Bel says the next pasuk, Barzelu nechoishes min alecha. The word nechoishes is Rashi Tevois. Ner Chanukah shmoina tadlik. So I was completely amazed that if you look in the Baal HaTurim on that pasuk, the Baal HaTurim says, well, shemen produces illumination. Mi banim asher yehi ritzoi is Rashi Tevois Meir, because it illuminates the face of the menorah. But Lefi Darkenu, we see that this is not just a remez to illumination, but this is a remez to the great Tana Rav Meir, who was so inextricably bound to Chanukah. His life's tefillah was alakad demer anini, always invoking the miracle of Chanukah. Rabbi Meir was soul bound to Chanukah. Whenever there was a tzara, he always said, Rebbi who saved us in time of Chanukah should save us now, because Chanukah is the light of Banim La'amakim. And therefore, of course, Rav Meir will be alluded to in this pasuk. Mi Banim Asher Yehi Ritzoi is Meir. And in fact, I found in the Sefer Lechem Lefi Hataf, that my good friend Rav Pinchas Brandeis gave me many years ago, that in fact, Mi Banim Asher Yehi Ritzoi is Rashi Tevois Meir, referring to Rebbi Meir, and he explains it because the Torah of Rabbi Meir is the Torah of Mishnah, and through Mishnah Hashem pulls us out of Gehenna, like the pasuk says, Ha'elisa min sha'il nafshi Rashi Tevois Mishnah, and Rabbi Meir stam Mishnah Rav Meir, and therefore in the Chelek of Asher, Shmeina, Lachmai, Shmeina is Rashi Tevois Mishnah. So, in the Zechus of Rameir yanks us out of Gehenna. So, the Lechem Lefi Ataf learns this is a remez to Reb Meir because Reb Meir is connected to the Mishnah. But Lefi Darkenu, that this is the pasuk that alludes to the miracle of Chanukah, of going to the share of Asher to get the oil to light the menorah. And what more appropriate words should allude to Reb Meir than Mibanim Asher Yehi Ritzoy? From the concept of Banim, we are favored by Avinu Shema Shamayim. That was the life's mission of Reb Meir, the shita of Reb Meir. Bein kach ubein kach nekrao banim, that we are always banim la'makayim. So what more appropriate pasuk is there to allude to the great Tana Reb Meir than mi banim asher yehi ritzoy? That's the remez to the great Tana Reb Meir in the pasuk that has 36 letters for the Yom Tov of Chanukah, the Yom Tov of the Achar Kain Ba'u V'anecha, the Yom Tov that we restored Chodesh Mila and Shabbos, the mitzvahs that demonstrate that we are Banim Lamakam. And therefore, on this Yom Tov, which is the Zman of the Yahrtzeit of the great Tana Reb Meir, we have the Remez to Reb Meir, Baruch Mi Banim Asher Yehi Ratzoi. And the Lechem Lefi Ataf says another Remez. We know one of the Psukim Reb Meir invokes to support his shita is V'haya ba'amakim asher yoimer lohem lo yamiatem yoimer lohem b'nei kelchai. So first of all, the word yoimer is ois Meir, but the soifei tevos of loy ami atem yoimer b'nei kelchai, loy ami atem yoimer soifei tevos also Meir. So on this holy evening, the Yahrtzeit of the great Tana Reb Meir, Chazal tell us that on the day that Tzaddik passes away, his shita becomes embedded in the soul of the Jewish people. May this shita become attached to Klal Yisrael, so that we are always nechshav lefanav kebanim, and we should be zoicha in that merit to the Geula Shlema. Rabbi Bechai says that Chanukah is the chinuch of the Geula HaSida, which we know will come b'schus Reb Meir, as Reb Meir says in the Yerushalmi that he's Mashiach, which means that in the zechus of his shita that we are always banim la'makayim, the Mashiach will come, he will be zoicha to that geula b'mheir v'yaminu. Amen.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.